Hey, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Untying the Knot. Hello, Miranda.
Hello, Katie.
Our fantastic co-host. Welcome.
So excited. It's been a month, I guess. It's time.
Crazy that it's been a month, but it's been a month. And here we are. So last month, we talked a bit about what happens when you make that decision, when you make the decision to leave. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you get blindsided and you have no idea that this is coming. And I'm going to let you take the wheel here and explain a little bit of your background. As we get into this topic, we'll understand a little bit more about what Miranda went through because she was blindsided too.
I was. And I'd like to think, now that I've done some work, I'd like to think that you're never really blindsided. Like there's always something that was there that we missed or we weren't available for, but we were only married for a year. So I just was not in the place to even comprehend what was going on. So basically I got married when I was 20. I got married in September. I turned 21 in November. A couple weeks later, I got pregnant, Thanksgiving. I graduated college in May, 6 months pregnant, and then I had her in August.
Wow. So that's a lot for a 20-year-old. Your brain's not even fully developed yet at that age.
No. And in fact, here's a funny story. My second ex-husband had boxes of my stuff unbeknownst to me. Like I had no idea in his garage. And he finally was like, can I give you this crap? And I'm like, I had no idea you had it. Go ahead, give it to me. And it was stuff from my first wedding. Like I totally had walked out. So the last couple of months I've had to go through, which there's no coincidences. For me, it was time to like make peace with that. And I threw away a lot of stuff and it was very healing, but it was weird because I hadn't seen this stuff in 20 years. And, what do you want to keep for your daughter? What did I want? I asked her, did you want any of this stuff? What do I not need? But it was weird because I was like, what was I doing? Like it was my decision. I was an adult, but like, who let me do this? Like, why was I doing? And I know why. Like I went back, gone back and done the work, raised in a highly religious household, was trying to escape things, was trying to run away, never felt like I belonged anywhere. I always felt like an outsider. So I was just looking for somebody to like claim me or take me on. And he was persistent. He worked for my family. He was not my type at all in any way, shape, or form, but he was a hard worker and he was honest, or so I thought. And he kept pursuing me. So I was like, why not? And then also, and this might be a little TMI, but this is truthfully what dragged me into it. I was drugged and sexually assaulted when I was 19. Oh. So in my mind, I was like almost being punished for like trying to be an adult and go out and do adult things. And so I was like, the only safe place for me is to be in this marriage or to be somewhere where someone else is looking out for me. So
it's taking care of me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know what love was. I really didn't. I was just like, he's going to be safe. He's never going to leave me. I literally said to my friend, I know that he's always going to provide for me and he's never going to leave me. Like I know that, and that's warped, but that is literally what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And so we went through this experience very quickly. It all just kind of came together. We had a giant wedding with 200 people. I don't know why. It's still like such a waste of money. Agreed. Why none of those people? There was one person that was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm sure other people asked me and I just didn't hear it. I'm totally sure that was the case. But in my mind, I don't remember. I was just like, I guess I'm doing this. And so I did it. And I didn't expect to get pregnant right away. Of course, we know how that happens, but I didn't think that would happen. And I finished my degree. I'm really glad I finished my degree, but she was a week late. It's at like 9 days late. She did not want to come out. I was 0. They had to induce me from 0. It was like 27 hours of labor. It was like, she did not want to be here. And we've talked about being spiritual and being all woo woo, but I believe like I passed a lot of anxiety and fear down to her in the womb.
I was just going to ask. So and I'm sorry to interrupt your story, but you know me, I'm the interrupter.
Yeah.
So were you like your healed, older, more mature eyes looking back now? Were the red flags already happening while you were pregnant?
Not with him. Like we were moderately happy. Like we were never so goofy in love, and we were never, I hate you, fighting. We went to eat, we did our thing, we hung out, we did, you know. And so I didn't like second marriage, absolutely red flag all over the place. But as far as like in that container in that house, I didn't feel threatened. But also there was no spark, there was no chemistry. We were just kind of doing the thing. And I think he really did love me, but I think that I was just way too real for him. I've realized that's the kind of person I am. I'm a Scorpio. I'm depth. I'm emotion. And it was just way too much for him to handle. He wanted someone to like, you know, just shut up and take care of the house and do the stuff and take care of everything for me. And I was not in the place to do that. So, but the red flags were with me. The red flags were with that. I couldn't sit with myself. I didn't want to experience being raped. I didn't want to feel any of that. I just wanted to forget about all of it. I didn't want to think about my childhood. I just wanted to escape. And you can do that for as long as you want, but you'll never find that inner peace and that contentment because you're always running from your feelings.
Well, right. And I want to make very clear here, guys, that this is before Me Too.
Yeah.
This is before social media, right? When we started connecting with one another and sharing our stories and empowering each other as women. So I have a bit of a background with not the same situation, but, you know, within the same vein. And I too just wanted to bury that. Let's not talk about it. It's got to be my fault somehow. So that's embarrassing. Because there was no real, that I was aware of. And you know, I was a young lady as well. There was no real support system for this. Me Too movement, like, I feel like did a lot for that.
Well, and also like the shame, especially being raised in religion and the patriarchal situation and whatever, like that's shame. Who are you going to tell? And what the trauma program that I'm in right now is a lot about professionals learning that the trauma is not what happened to you. The trauma was your inability to share it with anyone. Your trauma was your inability to talk about it, to process it, to let the feelings move through. It's the shoving it all down. And that I realized that goes back to my whole entire life, being an only child and having all these feelings and not having anyone to express them with, being uncomfortable. And that really was where the trauma took place for me, was never being able to talk about it. I told one person who I worked with, an older lady, and she let me use her address and stuff so I could go get tested to make sure that I wasn't pregnant and that I was okay. But even that experience was traumatic. I went there alone. I did all that by myself. And when I finally told my ex-husband when we were dating, he was like, because he was there that night. It's a long story, but he was there. And then I was like, this is no fun. You're no fun. Like, and he left. And then it happened later that night. So in my mind, I was like, if I hadn't have done that and I had to just, you know, quieted myself and stayed with him and done that, none of this would have happened to me. So when I told him what happened, he was like, not upset, not angry, not like, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. He was kind of like, that sucks for you. And that is a red flag. That was a red flag. That was me like, hey, this person cannot hold you, cannot, you know, deal with any of this. And that should have been a red flag for me to go, you can't be with someone that you can't tell, you know, all your truest feelings about stuff to, you know? And
that brushes off that sheer violation of your physical body and your emotional state and your mental state, and just shake it off.
Yeah. Oof. So that in itself, I know I'm breezing over that, but I didn't do the work around that till I was about 40. Like I had shoved that down for 20 years. So now I can talk about it pretty easily, but I broke down and dealt with it when I was 40. Because that's enough right there. That's a lot. So going straight into that to having a kid, and then, like I said, she didn't want to be here. No part of her wanted to be here. And she never slept. She never slept. She had colic. She got up. She cried all the time. He couldn't handle it. He worked all the time. And I think he got up with me once, maybe twice in that whole baby time. So I was just, again, alone in my own home, feeling like I don't belong, feeling like this is not what I'm supposed to be doing.
Full of hormones.
Yeah, full of hormones. No one to talk to. Yeah, my mom was pretty supportive and she was around, but like I was a half an hour away. Back before Queen Creek was anything. I think we had a Serrano's that opened up. Like nothing was out there. So I was so alone. There's nowhere to go. No social media, no moms, like none of this stuff. And so I just sat with all of that at my house. And one day, it was the day she turned 11 months old. He came home and said, I got to talk to you. I don't love you anymore and I don't want to be married. And I'm like, we didn't have any like knockdown, drag out fights. We didn't have a buildup of something. It was just cruising along. We're tired. Baby cries. And then I don't love you anymore. So I was like,
dang.
Okay. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? And I think maybe it was a 20, 30-minute conversation. I just remember him sitting on the couch across from me like, so do you want me to take you somewhere or what do you want me to do? And he literally drove me because of my relationship with my parents and the religious stuff. I had so much shame. I was like, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And he took me to my aunt's house and dropped me off with his child.
With the baby?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So he was like done with you both.
Done. And I stayed there. I want to say I stayed there for a week, maybe 5-7 days. I don't remember. But I just got these moments of, and if any of this relates to you and you feel like you're a scared person, you're an anxious person, and then all of a sudden you get a moment of gusto and you're like, yeah, like lean into that because that's what I always wanted to call out of me and I couldn't. I could never harness it. But for some reason, one day I was just like, screw this. This is my house. Like if he wants to leave, and I didn't know about the other woman. I just thought he didn't want to be there.
Oh, so there was another woman involved.
Yeah, I was having an affair, but he wasn't man enough to say to me, I don't love you anymore because of this person, which, as I mentioned in the last episode, toxic or not, they're paired well. So it wasn't even so much about that. We weren't ever probably supposed to be together anyways, but for you to be like, yeah, I don't love you. And me being like, what did I do? Like, what? I'm just here raising your child. Like, what do you mean? Yeah. And so I came home and he was dressed up, ready to go on a date. And I shocked the hell out of him. He was pulling out of the driveway. I was pulling in and he didn't know what to do. So immediately he went in and took off his clothes and got in the shower as if he was like coming home from work. But I had already seen he was dressed up. I could smell the cologne. And he was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, this is my house. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you have going on. This is my house and this is her house. And if you don't love us or love me anymore, fine. But I'm going to live in my house. And I shocked myself. I had this moment of that took the same way you have rage that takes over you. I had like bravery that took over me. And I was just like, this is mine. And it didn't last long. Moment of courage, but it was.
But it got you back into your home. Now, did you own the home at that time?
We both owned it. Thank God.
Okay.
He wanted to fight about it because, he was the breadwinner. I was staying home. That was our agreement. But of course, he wanted to be like, well, thankfully I had given to the deposit of the house and we got married. So like there was nothing he could do about it. But so I'll say that was August. And so she turned 1 and all that time, didn't go to her first birthday party, didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. By November, things had gotten so bad. He was coming over. We'd started fighting a lot. Things got physical one night. I got a restraining order. And so that whole rest of the first, he just wasn't around. He didn't see his daughter. He didn't come around. It was not great. And our divorce went almost a full year in July. And I stayed there the whole time. And he was so mad at me and she was so mad at me. Oh, I didn't tell you that part. about 2 weeks after he left. So he packed up his stuff and he went to his parents' house and he left. And so it was just me, 21, with a baby in a big empty house on an acre in the middle of nowhere. And somebody they worked together. So somebody that they worked with who did not like her called me to say, hey, I just thought you should know that they're having an affair. I'm like, oh.
And that's how you found out.
That's how I found out.
Wow. Like you needed a second sucker punch in the gut, but at least you knew the truth at that point.
And the crazier thing is it was my family business and I had worked there too. So, and I knew her. I read her application when she applied. Like, gross. Like she was so like, oh, you guys are so cute. Like very Lifetime movie. Like just, ugh. So that's how I found out. And I was like, oh, it was almost a relief because I was like, well, now this makes sense.
Well, now you have a reason. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas before you were probably living in your head, like feeling like it was you that did something, right?
Mm-hmm. And the pain was different after that. If you've ever been cheated on, I lost 25 pounds. I couldn't eat. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I was like, and she was much older, and so I was like, why do you want this older woman with kids? And I'm like this, like I couldn't make sense of it in my head. What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Until I learned that like, this has nothing to do with you. This is all about him. But it took time. So I was there for almost a whole year. And then they were just very, very angry because their plan was she was just going to move in and I was going to kick rocks and they were going to live this life and they couldn't do it for a year. She still is, I'm sure, very, very angry at me. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's think about this.
Yeah. You interfered in my life, not the other way around, Toots.
And she did. She that's the day the divorce was done and I had to be out of the house and I got bought out of my portion of it. Thank God the market had just, and I did pretty well and I got paid out. And that day she moved in.
Wow.
And they lived there for years. And we talked about this before, but like, it really like, wow, like how could you do that? Like, how could you just move into someone? Like the whole thing just felt so skeezy.
Yeah. It weirds me out. I could never live in another woman's house either. And the similar thing happened with my divorce. He moved his woman in.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Like 2 weeks after I left or something. It wasn't very long, but yeah, definitely weird. So let's go back to the moment where you're sitting on the couch. He's in front of you and he's like, here's the deal. Don't love you anymore. So where are you going? That kind of thing. What was running through your head? Like, obviously there's feelings and there's that sort of anxiety and that sort of trying to figure it out and all of that. But then there's like the shit you got to worry about, pardon my French. Like, what am I going to come from? Where, like, what do we do with the house? Like all these things. So what'd you do after that?
So what am I going to do was like the first question I had. I had, like I said, graduated. I got my degree for teaching, but I was not going to go in a classroom and teach with my, like, with this baby and no one to, it wasn't going to work. So luckily I had that time before the divorce to kind of float and figure it out and really be with her and really now my husband number 2 walks in at some point in this. He literally came to my house with a friend. I never even left my house to date. I never even was alone as an adult. I literally went. So that's a whole nother story. But being at home, knowing like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to like operate a household? How am I supposed to handle, like, cause typical roles, he did the outside stuff and whatever. Like, how am I supposed to run a household by myself? How am I supposed to care for this baby by myself? He doesn't help me much, but at least it's another person there. Someone else is responsible for her. Like, what am I supposed to do about all of this stuff? And I think the overwhelm of that or the fear of that takes over the sadness the rejection, all of those things, they're there, but they come out in like, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle it? Versus like, I need to sit with this. I need to allow myself to be sad. I need to allow myself to grieve. Granted, you can't grieve right away. It takes time, but like that concept is not even a thing in my head. I wasn't even thinking about, hey, you have to be okay. I was just like, well, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to take care of her physically, not emotionally? So I think that, and we discussed this, I think maybe last time or the time before, all that physical stuff is important and pertinent, and you need to get counsel and you need to get advice, and all of that stuff is very important to know your rights. But if that emotion is not given space or acceptance, or you don't go talk to somebody, or you don't start to filter out some of the things that come up, it almost feels like you're in a fever dream.
Yeah.
Like,
well, here you are burying feelings again.
Yeah.
So now we're burying feelings on top of the feelings that we've already buried, on top of the feelings that we've already buried. And so what I love about what you just said is I'm thinking like into the future as you go through the process and you meet with counsel or you're in court or whatever. And we know the difference between someone who is grounded, understands what they want, understands what they need, is willing to compromise, is willing to work through things, versus somebody who's still so flippin' upset that they can't see past that. So they're actually impacting their own success. Tell me more about that. And maybe it doesn't pertain to your particular story, but I know that you work with a lot of women and, that are going through this. And do you see that with the work that you do?
Totally. And you could do a couple different things, and maybe that's a mixture depending on what you're going through, but you can either like I did. I just took, you want me to take you somewhere? Okay, take me to my aunt's house. You just let them, and if they did that in your marriage, you may continue to allow that to happen. They may dictate how you feel. They may think that they're entitled. They may think that they get to be in control, and you just kind of shrink and you allow that to happen. And then you're so overwhelmed and sad with all of that you can't even, I don't care what happens. Like you can't deal with it. Or we go the other way where we're like, this is what I want, and screw you. And you're doing everything just to spite them or just to piss them off,
right?
Which I understand wanting to do that, but none of that helps you deal with any of the emotions. It's like this temporary, it's almost like drinking. It's like, just so I can feel better for a little bit about these things. But really all it's going to do is just make me feel worse because I'm not going to get any relief of this. I'm just trying to alleviate. I'm just trying to express some of my emotions and make sure everybody hears me and everyone knows how I feel, but it doesn't do anything to help you. So I think in either of those scenarios, you're blind to what's really going on and what's really happening. And we want women to, women have to make decisions from those places. They have to move forward, and they have to, whether it's your choice or not, the proceedings have to go on. You have to sell the house. You have to do the stuff. And if you can't see any clarity through that, if those are your lenses, you're just making it so much harder for yourself.
100%. I see it in the work that I do. So as you know, I work with divorcing couples that have real estate assets, right? And there's two different type of people that I work with. One that is calm, grounded. They are working on themselves. They're working on communication. They can do it. They can, their feelings aside, they process them some other way, shape, or form. They don't go all scorched earth, And then I have the scorched earth ones, and I'll tell you what, things don't go as well for those. Things are a heck of a lot more expensive for those, because it ends up going that they're only going to communicate through attorneys at some point because they can't figure anything out on their own, and it ends up being a blown up mess on their own. So now their attorney bill is growing.
Been there. Yeah. And that's all an energetic thing, right? That's all you like creates and then you're matched energy, and then you're both, sunk down to those levels.
Mhm.
And that's something I didn't realize. And because I wasn't the angry asshole, I thought, well, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Mhm.
And even though, if you step back and look at it, he does have majority of the blame for the things that happened. I
Mhm.
didn't help anything by being so emotional and by not accepting what he was telling me. He
Yeah.
was telling me, I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to have a grown-up conversation. I'm not able to express my feelings like a big boy. I can't do that. So you keep coming at me, expecting me, if I just say enough, or I just defend myself enough, or I just explain myself enough, you'll get it. But he never would. He never will. I think I had an attorney or a police officer. We had police involved many times. It was very, very nasty and
Very volatile. Yeah.
very volatile. And that was mostly the new chicks doing. But
Eesh.
and that's a whole nother topic of involvement from other people. If I could talk to him one-on-one, we would be okay. In those few moments we got to be in court, we were okay. It was the outside. But just lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? Something about I'm sorry, I totally lost.
Okay.
I lost what I was trying to say.
Yeah, we're over 40 and it is okay for this to happen to us.
Yeah. But I think I was trying
We're
to
talking about talking together without outside of.
Yes. And a police officer told me one time, ma'am, I am so sorry you're going through this. I deal with this every day. I'm going to tell you off the record that Anna's a douchebag or asshole. Can't remember what term he used, but he said, I'm going to tell you something. He's probably never going to change. And every time that you waste your breath and your energy, you're talking to a brick wall. Yeah. I realize this isn't fair. I realize this isn't your fault. And it's so not cool that because it was like, I tried to take her to the doctor and it was his time. And because of the restraining order, he didn't want to meet me there. So he called. It was so stupid. And it's such a waste of resources and the cop's time. And it really stuck with me. Like, you're talking to a brick wall. So for you to think anything you do is going to change that, you're just going to make it harder for yourself. Yeah. And it really impacted me.
Yeah, I can see how and why. And you were probably looking for a little bit of wisdom at that point in time too.
Yeah.
So
fatherly or like man, a stable man.
Right.
Emotionally mature man to be able to like, hey, you're seen. You're validated. This is not right. It's not okay. But you also got to deal with your own shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So looking back at it, 20 plus years later, having done the work that you've done, doing the work that you do with others and supporting others that are going through this, what would you have done differently?
Definitely support faster. Definitely. We talked about therapy before. I think therapy is awesome. I think everyone should go through it, but it doesn't have to be traditional talk therapy. Anything that you can do that's somatic work, that's a mentor, a coach. It doesn't matter what it is, just your intention. It's that you're doing something and you're talking to someone and getting things out and having someone help you make connections. So that I think is a really important thing. If the word therapy scares you, fine, but find somebody to talk to about it. I would have connected with myself more. I just probably in the last 5 years and then really more in the last 2 years, I've gotten really into meditation, and we've talked about that too. Yep. But connect with yourself. Be able to sit with yourself, and it's scary and it's uncomfortable. But if you can't sit alone without distraction, if you can't sit alone without your kids, without your phone, and just instead of like, I got to do something. If you can't do that, your body is setting off an alarm. And in your thought of the alarm is go, 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 go. Really, the alarm's telling you stop. Right. Stop and feel.
Well, it puts you in constant fight or flight. And we know that that's not a healthy, like, there are times when fight or flight, like, we have that ability for a reason, right? There are times when that really makes sense and it matters and we need that, but not all the time. And it does a lot of damage. I'm learning now in my 40s.
Yeah. Well, and learning when it's appropriate, right? I was just having a discussion. There's someone in my life that I'm talking to, and we're both working through our things together. And it's interesting because I was always, and I realized since childhood, fight or flight, I was always up here. I was always scared. I was always running. And then I would have moments where I would drop into like, I think I'm okay. But most of the time I just live here. When the whole goal is you're down here, your baseline, you have a moment where it's appropriate, where you get adrenaline or something happens and you get that alert and you're supposed to, and then you work through it and then you come back down to baseline. That's how it's supposed to be. And so when you've lived like I have, or you have, or anyone who's had adrenal fatigue or nervous system overload or abuse or anything where you're in this constant state of caution, it's really uncomfortable as you do this work and you start to be more baseline to have to come up here again. Because you have to tell yourself, this is human. This is natural. It's okay. This is my body working and telling me something's wrong. And instead of running from it, I need to listen and see what it is. And then I can safely make my way back down. But it's aversion. A lot of it is just aversion to old feelings. And if you stay there, you will just attract and do and feel the same way for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. And I can see how you in that moment, bringing you back to the 20-year-old where you're sitting across, on the couch from him and he tells you that, I can see where having a moment with yourself and quieting your mind and getting on that track and, figuring out what that track is, first of all, would have been really beneficial for you in that moment.
Yeah. That and being able to say, being able to not make it my fault. Like, how could I look at this differently? How could this be you going through some shit that why am I automatically jumping to, I did something wrong? And this is like, hey, what's going on with you, bud?
Yeah.
Tell me more about this. How long have you been feeling this way? What, did something happen? Is there someone else? And I did ask that question, but of course I asked it in, who is it? As opposed to like, hey, what's going on? And when you can
really happening here. Yeah.
And when you can have that compassion for somebody and compassion for yourself, it starts with compassion for yourself by not automatically making it about your feelings and your thoughts and your blame and shame. And then that allows you to have compassion for someone else to say, let's talk about this. Let's not just automatically jump to the most extreme or like let's have a conversation. And if that's the end result, okay, but let's talk about it. And I've never, until now, my current situation, I have never been able to just talk about it with somebody without all of that emotions taking over.
Do you think he would have been receptive to that?
Oh, hell no. But he wouldn't have been with me if I wouldn't have been
like that. Right.
If I was in the position to be able to say something like that. Like, absolutely not. And, it's interesting because I was raised by a mental health professional. So I had a lot of quote unquote, I don't want to say clinical knowledge, but I understood like textbook wise, it made sense to me exactly what happened and I could understand it. But I allowed that to like take over instead of like, allowing myself to have the appropriate feelings that I should have had about it. And that goes back to that shoving down of how you actually feel. You are entitled to feel whatever way you feel about whatever happens to you. And if you try and tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this way, or I'm better than this, or I'm too old to feel this way, you're just doing a disservice to yourself.
Totally agree with that. I could not agree with that more. In fact, I feel like we need to repeat that 10 times louder for the people in the back, And it's
not a one-time concept. You don't just switch flip a switch and get that. You have to I have to watch things and listen to things every day that re-cement that idea for me. It is. So don't be if you're hearing this for the first time and you're like, oh my God. And it's a process. It's an ongoing process.
And I'm sure that, and it's not something that we have to get into now, but I'm sure that you have certain things that you plug into, certain routines that you do on a daily basis that get you in that space or that allow you to continue this connection on a daily basis. Am I right?
I think I've talked maybe in our divorce group on Facebook, I've talked about it more than here, but like having your non-negotiables, your things every day that you do I always say, like, for instance, I want to do yoga for 30 minutes or 60 minutes a day, but I don't always get to it, hardly, but I always stretch because it elicits the same type of feeling from me, and it's important for my body. I don't always do a full 20-minute meditation, but I always sit in my closet for 5 minutes alone when I get up and let all the thoughts come in before I start going. So there's certain things that I know that I need to do every day to stay connected. And we've talked about before, doing them at the beginning of your day so that you can accept the day and open the day with a blank slate instead of operating at a deficit and trying to spend all day catching up.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that I must do every day, and I fought it for 39 years, and this is something that I wish 20-year-old me could have done, is write.
Like journaling?
It doesn't, it could be. I had no imagination as a kid. I did not like make believe. I hated journaling. So like I do it now, but I was resistant for most of my life. So if you're hearing this, and you're like, I don't know, that's fine. Write what your plans are. Write out your feelings, keep an emotions journal, write what you want to see happen, write a letter to someone that you don't feel comfortable talking to. Like whatever it is, the process of writing out not only helps you refocus, you're focusing on the writing and the material as opposed to your emotions, but it's like an energetic release of these words in my body hold power and they're taking up space. And if I can get them out, even if they don't go to anyone, if I can get them out, it will help me immensely. And it will help me make a plan. And it will help me, even as simple as when I think about something, I have way too many, but I have notebooks everywhere. And like the second I have a thought, I write it down. And that helps me because I've spent a lifetime going, I forgot. Oh, I should have done this. Oh, I should have done that. And like, I don't want to live in that chaos anymore. So when something comes up, I honor it. I either write it down or I do something about it in the moment. But that's a way to like be able to stay in that. I always say baseline, but I don't know if there's a better word, but to be able to stay in that even keel space as opposed to like starting to drop way down and trying to catch up.
And I love that because I feel like you said, I love the word honoring because I feel like it's honoring your inner self. Like, some of these thoughts, correct me if I'm wrong, could be warnings, red flags, or it could just be like, hey, I got to pick eggs up on my way home from work or something like that. Right.
Well, just intuition,
intuition is the word I was looking for. Yes.
Yeah. It's the micro, like the little steps that we do that help us in a bigger way listen to ourselves when we get a big message about what we should do. That starts with the little ways of listening to yourself. And that sounds stupid, just be about eggs, but it's really important because that's how you start getting in tune with like, oh, my body, my brain's telling me something. Let me listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is wildly important. And like you mentioned, these couple of ideas and suggestions that you've brought up, they're relatively simple, right? When you look at it on paper, but the impact is phenomenal.
Well, it's all about being able to take the emotional charge out of a situation. So it's always helpful to say, if this was your best friend, what would you tell her to do? If this was you, a long time ago, what would you, or your child, that's a good one. If you have kids. That's a good one. What would you want them to do? What would you tell them about the situation they're going through? I didn't do that. I didn't have the greatest relationship like that with my parents. So I like the reparenting or the reaffirming or being loving with yourself. Like, what would you say to your child and say that to yourself? How would you tell them to handle this? Would you tell them to take some space and time and think, or would you tell them to like go out there and start yelling and hooting and hollering? Like what would you tell someone else to do? Or at work, how would you handle the situation at work? And think about it more in that way, as opposed to just feeling reacting on feeling. That makes sense.
Right. Because we have feelings for a reason. We should listen to them. But in my life, it's been a very rare occasion where something positive has come out of me emotionally reacting to something.
You mean in the moment or long term?
In the moment, and sometimes long term, because when I emotionally react, it's usually not a positive thing. And I'm damaging relationships, or I'm burning bridges, or I'm doing something, right? So this is why I've scaled back on that in the last few years, because when I turned 40, I don't know, it's like I got new glasses or something. It's like you said, the switch was flipped.
Yeah.
And I started to figure out that, you know what, this pattern just doesn't work for me. You know? And so taking a step back and yes, having the emotion, honoring myself for having the emotion, traveling down to see where the trigger went, like all those things is important to me. But reacting in an emotional way has not been beneficial for me.
Well, and I think that's the difference between a reaction and a response. So our options are to react emotionally, be led by emotions, do absolutely nothing, and just like let it all sit with you and never express yourself, or respond from a different place. And so I think reacting and responding will both get what you need, your expression, right? But it's just how you go about it. And this one is compassionate, and it's educated, and it's paused, and it's still ultimately you honoring how you really feel and expressing that. But it's more heart led than mind led, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like this is a great place to pause this story and to jump in the remainder of your many stories next time around. If you guys want to check out any of our previous episodes and see what we've already talked about, then we keep a little library over on our YouTube channel. It is at MOMnation USA. That is the handle. If you prefer to listen podcast style, maybe you're out there moving your body, running, biking, hiking, all of that jazz, then you can hop on over to your favorite podcast platform, do a quick search for MOMnation Talk Radio. There you'll find us. Please like, download, subscribe, rate us, all the things, and you will never miss a beat. And we appreciate your support. We appreciate those that follow us. And we hope from the bottom of our hearts that this is helpful and that you guys are finding some value with us sharing, especially our personal stories. I always personally love personal stories.
Yeah.
That was weird. But I really do. I like the humanness of it.
Yeah. You can find yourself in anybody. And if you can allow yourself to put your guard down and just listen and open up, you can always learn something or think about something differently.
I totally agree. All right, guys. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye.
Feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or disconnected from yourself? Miranda Ray offers one-on-one private sessions designed to help you reconnect with yourself. Gain tools for emotional healing, build confidence, and step into your power with compassionate guidance every step of the way. You deserve peace. You deserve clarity. You deserve to feel good again. Let Miranda help you get there. Take the first step toward a brighter, more balanced you. Reach out to Miranda now.